Go on your cue.
All right, guys, this is Wheels Up DFS podcast. It's not always going to be a DFS centric. What I want to do with this is talk about sports in a unique and diverse way that I won't say isn't being talked about, but I don't think is being talked about enough. I think when people think of sports, they pigeonhole themselves or they box themselves into this thinking of, oh, rough and tumble macho man mentality, or like, oh, it's for the guys to watch and cheer and drink beer and chicken wings, and we all can enjoy those things as well. And we might on this podcast while talking about a more in-depth conversation. But the whole point of me doing this podcast is looking at sports and examining it, and pop culture for that matter, because I don't want to limit myself. I'm big on not limiting myself. And as this podcast grows, you guys will learn more about me personally. I brought my friend Governor on today. My name is Logan. You can find us at Wheels Up Podcast. But what we're going to do with these podcasts is I don't want to make them polished. I don't want to put the nail polish on. I don't want to make them look fancy. I mean, I'm going to try to get some advertisements and, make some money would be nice. Eventually, maybe, potentially. We should always strive to make money in all things we do, I think. But the ultimate goal of this podcast is to talk about sports organically. And that's why I brought on Governor with one central question. But I'll let him introduce himself. I'll let him kind of set the stage of why he's here and what kind of perspective he wants to bring.
Yep. Hello, my real name's Alan, but I like to go by Governor, so thank you. Hello, everyone. Met Logan through Discord and like him a lot as a dude, so was looking for a channel to sort of talk about stuff because I've been enjoying voice chat and I do enjoy speaking, but sometimes you just don't get that platform. And I'm thank you for this opportunity, Logan.
Oh yeah.
I hope to be a guest a few times, but I want to see everything that comes with this too.
No, I mean, we have a...
And I hope to bring a clean perspective because I do think you and me have different backgrounds and are coming from different places, specifically in that I do want to talk about sports organically, and I don't think anyone needs to make money on anything.
Great. That's exactly what this is. I don't want this to be one water tank idea. This podcast or this YouTube channel, I don't even care what you want to call it, is supposed to just be an expression of how I view sports and how people I know view sports. And then consequently, as you do that, you're going to get rain clouds that come into your environment. And those rain clouds aren't always negative. I mean, people always assume that rain is...
Just because it's a different opinion doesn't mean it's negative.
Right, exactly. That's why I bring up rain clouds, because there's always needs to be watering to grow flowers, I always say, people use manure to grow flowers. So beautiful things literally grow out of shit.
There you go.
So that's kind of the idea of this podcast. It's like we have a direction, or maybe I own it. But ultimately, what I want this to be is anything and everything around maybe one central topic just to keep us on track. And that topic today is daily fantasy sports good for the sports fan? Just in general, but also like the hardcore fan, the casual fan. Are all DFS players even sports fans? Are we just degenerates? Is it perhaps a math game and people hate sports? And I think the answer lies probably yes to all those things in different degrees, but I don't see a lot of touts having a long-term, long dialogue kind of conversation around this central idea. So I knew you'd be the guy to bring in to talk about this initially. What's your initial thoughts to my question when you heard
it? Well, the initial question you gave me kind of was like, my first thought was, damn, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
And then I've sort of been sitting here thinking about it, trying to collect my thoughts on it in my head. And like the initial question you gave me was, and I think a good place to start, because you just gave us like 6 questions in a row. And I think that might be the next 5 podcasts is all those questions. But the first initial one that you gave me that I think is a good base to start with is, who do you actually think knows the sports better? Us degenerate gamblers who may not even watch the game, we just bet on it, or the casual fan, sports fan, hardcore team fan of them that are watching the sport and they know the game because they've been watching it for 20 years, as opposed to a sports bettor who has lived on betting the sport and may not have watched a single game. That's a good question. And that's a good base. I think that's a good basis to start with. Get that out of who do you think actually knows the sports better? Is it the bettor or the sports guy? And sometimes those guys are the same. Like, there's plenty often dudes who play DFS, but they don't use the math. They don't use the betting criteria. They don't use any of that system that's been put in place from people betting for years and years. But they say, no, I know the sport. I know I've watched these teams. I know I know. And they bet on that.
Yeah, I like to think of it like a highway in the sense that we might all drive cars, to get to work, but we all have different style cars. We all have different preferences. You keep your car at a different temperature than I do. That could be related to different factors like bankroll management, different things like that. I mean, I don't know how much people that are going to tune into this podcast know about daily fantasy sports. I'm assuming some basic knowledge, but that's the fun part about it. I feel like as well that we haven't touched on yet is the degree in which you find these players, because I know people that will literally build a Super Bowl lineup, which is coming up this weekend. Not to date this podcast too much, but it is coming up this weekend. I know people that are just gonna on Sunday morning gonna build a lineup, And then I also know people that are gonna build a lineup 10 minutes before the game. And then we're part of a larger DFS community started by one of our favorites, Al Smizzle, who has made millions of dollars doing this. Like, what would you call him at this point? Like, he's he is the godfather to me of DFS in terms of the longevity in which he's done it.
Al's a player I have watched for many years. I remember watching it. I've read his articles at ESPN. Like, he's someone I have followed for a long time, and I trust a lot of his input, and he has been successful at daily fantasy. I don't know exactly how much he's won, and from what he's said on his podcast, he's openly said this. He doesn't do DFS to pay his bills. He has all that set aside.
Right.
And DFS is fun for him, the same as he does NFTs. That's not to pay his bills or anything.
Let's assume that
so he would be one of the guys I would call I wouldn't put him in the major sports bettor category. He's more like the highest end of the sports guys, but he's also a smart enough guy to know trust the math. Just use the math and play that game, and you'll win more often than I know sports better than you will win.
Right. Well, that's why I use the highway analogy, because sometimes.
And to use your analogy, Al's one of those guys who he knows every route and can do it with a Toyota or a Tesla. He just prefers the Tesla.
Well, and I mean, it's such a damn good analogy for what we're trying to do here is sometimes you want to merge right, and sometimes you want to merge left, and you're going to take different exits, and different times. And sometimes we have this one guy who, we spoke to recently about bankroll management. Sometimes you got to get off the exit and you got to stop betting a sport, or you got to change your process. But I see the people that don't play DFS are, to me, the same type of people that bet on DFS that don't watch the sport. They're the same people. And then there's the intersect. There's the people that are always on the highway, that always take the same route, that always go that same route for work or leisure. They travel all the time, and that's kind of where me and you are on different stakes. On the lower stakes, and then you got different degrees in which people will play. But the concept, the philosophy is, who is the better sports fan for the game? Who's the smarter sports fan? These are kind of things that we can get into. But I think the hardcore fan, let's say sports fan A, is really knows his stuff. He's a season ticket guy. He's someone like Governor's dad's been around a long time, saw a lot of sports.
Yep. He's watched a lot of sports. He has a team that he watches
Right.
all the time, multiple years in a row.
Right. He's dabbled with DFS. He might
maybe even bet a little bit here or there, props or something. Maybe not like made his money on it, but he's always done a little something like that kind of guy. Those guys, there's a lot of guys like that where they've put $20 on a game or something,
right,
here or there for their majority of their life.
Okay, and this guy, he likes to meet up with his friends at like a Buffalo Wild Wings type of
stuff. Exactly. Yeah, go to the bar kind of thing.
And have that atmosphere, right?
Yeah, that's your average sports bettor. Yeah,
but
which is also your average fan of a team, because they'll probably have on a jersey of some kind.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But let's assume he's not average. Let's assume he's very knowledgeable. Like this guy follows the team, beat writers, every little nugget. This guy, he's watching the
all. He knows the draft picks. He knows the enactment before.
So he's got friends at the bar that he hangs out with on Sunday that might not know as much as he does. But this guy watches the all 22. Now, some people would tell you that guy's stupid for not playing DFS, that he should use his knowledge, and make money off of it. Now, that guy also might feel, hey, you guys are taking something I love. You're taking this environment where I drink, 6 beers and I have 12 chicken wings with my friends, and we really enjoy the sport for its purity, and you guys have made money off of it, and you've fucked it up, to be frank. You've taken something, and now you don't even watch the game. You don't watch the game, you watch players. You don't even watch the officiating for its purity. You know how, in baseball, people, I know in baseball, for example, people really study, the strike zones of different umpires and things. And so there are people that, they used to really take pride in, this referee's from my home state, or all these novelty things, that all sports fans like Lambeau Field, the Lambeau Leap, stuff like that the DFS people don't really care about. This parody guy, he's mad because he's got all this knowledge, but he's not winning any money. That's what the DFS guy would tell you, that he should be doing this. Now, that guy's saying DFS is ruining the parody of my favorite sport and my Sunday religion. I'm saying, why can't we both coexist?
I think it's personally, this is where we differ. I think it's sort of on the opposite from what I've seen. I haven't heard a lot of sports fans hating DFS guys. I've never heard that before. I've never heard a sports fan hating a guy who's willing to put $50 on the team that they're playing because he thinks you're in a bad matchup. That gives me a reason to get fired up and be like, no, we're going to win. All of that stuff.
Right.
I try to keep it because, like, as much as they want to keep it separate, DFS and sports betting is very close. A lot of the people who play DFS on the regular and, like, not just throw in a contest day of, but like guys like us who reserve the entry. I already have 20 lineups into the Super Bowl for Sunday kind of stuff. Those are the guys who are also betting props. Those are the guys who are betting the money line. And I haven't seen any backlash from sports fans towards those guys. Now I'll admit, like, it's probably not good for the environment if everything moved to people who just don't care about the game as long as they can get a bet in on it. But then again, the amount of people who are doing that is a small percentage. Like, even guys like us who are casual, but we're DFS guys. It's part of the reason we listen to Al. It's part of the reason we play and grind in that.
Mm-hmm.
I still watch the games.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm as knowledgeable as that guy at the bar that you describe, but I'm also of the mindset that that guy at the bar doesn't really have an edge over me, knowing that, compared to what I know of the game of DFS and betting in general. It's like to use Al's analogy that he used. There's a dice and 5 sides are red and 1 side's blue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm betting red every time. I don't care if the guy at the bar says it's gonna be blue. If he knows it's gonna be blue this 1 or 2 times,
right,
for whatever reason, and he bets blue, I'll let him do that and I'll let him win and see if he's profitable. Because he'll do that and he'll do it once, and then he'll either lose all that money or he'll never do it again and say he's profitable enough because he never bet again. And I'll bet red and slowly beat him over time. And that's sort of how I feel. Like, even that guy, I don't think that guy has that much of an edge in DFS. So I don't think there's DFS players saying, oh, you need to use that edge to win. Because, to be honest, there's not a lot of people outside of, like, a good community like us with Smiz that are actually wanting other people to do well. It's like, no, I want you to do poorly so that I win. That's the mentality of most people betting. There's a small group who actually want everyone to eat. And then there's a lot of people who don't have any knowledge on either end, whether it's on the betting side, math side, or on the sports side where they're watching, and they're just literally throwing money at the wind like it's a lottery ticket.
Right. Well, so there is a parody crowd. Now, it doesn't surprise me that Governor doesn't know a lot of those people, because I just view Governor as a type of guy that, like, he has a rainbow of friends, different shades, vibrant colors, different people. But, like, the
small
people,
group, very diverse. Yeah, that's true.
Right, a very inclusive, diverse group. But if somebody does something you don't like, it's not like you keep them around just to have somebody to debate with. Some people do that. So I would view that parody fan as kind of a closed-minded person. So I'm kind of like you in that regard, where it's like, if you really think the DFS person is bad for the sport, I probably don't want to spend a whole lot of time with you, because you could find DFS unappealing, but I honestly know people that hate it. And to me, it's like, no, you should thank us, because we're the ones that get up in the morning and watch Jacksonville against the Atlanta Falcons at 8 in the morning.
When they're in London, yeah.
When they're in London.
And really, like, the betting is, like, people need to understand, a lot of these sports wouldn't exist if there wasn't betting. You wouldn't put all this money into sports and have $1 million stadiums. Billionaires wouldn't want to own teams and have fun with sports teams if there wasn't some money to be made off of it. And a lot of that is on the gambling side. It's on the DFS side. It's the betting money that's on it.
Well, I don't know how deep you want to go, Governor. I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but let's be honest. This whole Brian Flores thing with the Dolphins,
it's being really just like, yeah, this whole thing is crazy, honestly.
But part of the reason that blew up so big is because now we got a Pete Rose situation where it's like, oh, the owner might have been offering to pay, to lose games. Yeah, that hurts you as a fan if you're a season ticket holder. Like, damn it, I invested this money. Like, we know this one season ticket holder, I think, in the league, and I'm sure if it happened to his team, he would be disappointed. But if I put $100 on this game and find out that it's fixed or that it's predetermined, that scandal would change the way we view sports and economics. I mean, it would change a lot.
I mean, I would give you that. That being said, in my group of peers, and that's different, that's not even the problem. That's not even the big issue with the Brian Flores thing. Most of the people I know aren't even talking about that.
No, I was just relating it back to how we help the common sports fan. Like, of course, that's not the biggest issue in that story.
Right.
All I'm saying is that we contribute in a way that the hardcore fan does not give us credit for. We're like the vigilantes that keep the sport pure the way they want it to, and the way they.
That's true. If there wasn't any betting, there wasn't people like us looking at that kind of stuff.
Right.
Would and is trying to be swept under the rug. So yes. I mean,
let's be frank. One of the main reasons that Roger Goodell had such a quick response is because sports betting, we're at the mecca. We are at the WrestleMania of sports betting, which is the Super Bowl. I mean, we're going to be betting, not we, I use the royal we, but people will be betting on the national anthem over under stuff like Gatorade.
What's the first song of the halftime show? Yes, all of those prop bets. This is that kind of year.
Right.
Even and they every little thing you can bet on, you do at the Super Bowl. Yeah.
And I do apologize for my phone, but now you know it's live. You know this conversation is organic, so we can break and have a dance party in just a second. But I think what we're getting onto is a good conversation here, and I do apologize for the noise.
No, you're good. I don't even care about the phone. It's background noise. It's fine.
Yeah. At some point, though, like, I think we have to give each other credit for what we bring to the table.
Yes.
Like, if me and you went to the same dinner, I wouldn't assume that the pot roast you're bringing tastes like shit because my grandma's an Italian who knows how to cook the best pot roast. It might be a different style of food,
and it might not taste good at all. Who knows?
It's
true.
But I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like, I don't know why in America, and people say, well, stick to sports. You hear that a lot. Sports is the melting pot, to go back to the food. It is the breaking bread of different cultures all the time. I mean, we talk about DFS in that chat we've referenced multiple times with multiple different races, with multiple different ages. There's even some female influence in that chat as well. You guys might not know that, but so I think of sports in this way. So when I hear people like, oh, DFS is bad or DFS is this, DFS is no different than sports itself. But I just want a little credit for what we do. Do you think people would be following women's soccer, for example, in the same way that Brian Flores kind of connects to DFS? One of the main reasons that I think female sports got so much money and actual attention was because DFS started putting on Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey, and you could bet on, the women's Olympic team. You can bet on women's Olympics right now. So we help industries that are minorities. We do. I mean, there are people that bet on video games right now.
I'm one of those. I play CSGO and League of Legends DFS. But I also am one of those guys who would play that game. So, like, I'm weird. Like, I play the DFS, but I'm more like if I were like a single A baseball player who played MLB DFS. I don't even know if that's legal, actually.
I don't know either. But
that's, or if I'm like a guy who plays like men's league softball every week, that kind of guy who's also playing MLB DFS. That's the same I am, because I play League of Legends. Like, I'm not very good. I'm silver, whatever. I'm not anywhere near like I'm like low. I'm just above bronze and wood.
Yeah. Meanwhile, this purity sports guy who gets mad at us for gambling on everything and making it more about the players in this specific 2-yard rush in a game between the Patriots and let's, I don't know, say the Bills of 10 years ago, not to use any references, ended in like a 38-10 blowout.
Yeah.
Those kind of people, I think, are still mad at the DFS guy for cheering for the goal line touchdown from the third running back because it might, give him points for or against on the defense. And it's like, but why can't we enjoy the sport for what it is? I know I mentioned the UFC. I know people that love watching Amanda Nunes because
my brother is a huge UFC fan. I end up watching that all the time.
Right. So there are people that love watching Amanda Nunes because she's breaking barriers for women. But then there is also people that are like, I don't like to see women get punched in the face. And you can make arguments for both sides. Now, it doesn't matter what side I'm on in that discussion. What matters is the discussion can be made. And I think that gambling and DFS still falls under this like Pete Rose, we got to cover it up. We got to like put this like black label Playboy kind of label on this magazine cover because it's so dirty. And it's like, do you understand how much we give and how much community involvement we have? I mean, there are nights where I've saved so much money by chatting with Governor and the other crew in our voice chat, and we basically created a virtual bar,
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
there is some merit to being able to talk to other people with different opinions about it.
Right.
Now, like, again, and there is a discussion to be had on how much someone's knowledge of the game and being a fan is helpful. From what I've seen, I don't think it's very negligible. And honestly, I think the argument to be had is that the experience is starting to die. And that's what's killing it for the sports fan. And they're trying to grasp at whatever they can, not realizing that it's like the money you pay to go to the stadium compared to what I pay to just watch the game at home or even not watch the game at all is just insane.
Right.
And then I can make money off of it too. It's like, whereas a lot of like, I know like I couldn't play DFS anytime I went to a sports game because most stadiums have cell phone and that locked out. I can't get Wi-Fi. I can't even, like, I have to set my lineup before I enter the parking lot, or else I have no signal and no way to like get on and set a lineup or send a bet or anything like that. They don't make it very accessible when you're at a game to do the betting. So if you go to the game with any kind of betting in mind, you're not happy. And then you're complaining to the sports fan who wants to be there to cheer the game. So it's like I can see where the betting guys would be mad at the sports fans. Like, why can't you make it easier for us to come to the game so that you're gonna have more people at the game?
Right. More people, more dollars.
More people yelling for stuff to happen.
Right.
Like, they're trying to like, yeah.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. It's
like I would agree with you. I think DFS and that is actually good for the environment. I think it's keeping the sports around. Now it's just, can the sports fans keep up? Or maybe they don't like it because they think the sport's dying because the experience is dying and it's just switching over to something new. I don't know.
What you hear people say, well, we buy season tickets or we buy jerseys.
Right.
And maybe that would be a fun conversation we can have too, is like, do you think, because I've heard people say, well, as a grown man, you shouldn't be wearing face paint. You shouldn't. But I don't care about any of
No,
that.
you can do that. That's no problem. I have no problem with being like theatrical and that doing something. If you're it's passionate. If you're passionate about watching the sport, then you should do that. But if you're passionate about watching the sport and it makes you mad that someone is making money and not watching the sport, that's just a weird thing to me. Like in your mind, it'd be a weird thing because why can't someone just make money? Like I am at least of the mindset where it's like, well, you don't have to make money. So, but then it's like, then the only reason I have against it would be, I just don't want you who's not watching the sport to do anything. Now I'm just trying to be exclusionary and stuff. And like, that's not good. So like, there's really no, I that doesn't seem like a merited argument to me. It's just, it's one of those where I wish I could sit people down and talk to them and be like, why do you really not like the sports better? What is it? Maybe it's just they've had a bad sports betting experience. Maybe they got screwed over by a casino. Or that kind of shit does happen.
Or I have a psych degree. I help people all the time. In fact, I help people with this issue from time to time. Addiction's a real thing.
Exactly. Right? Yes.
But addictions follow all kinds of different strings and avenues, and we should take them all serious. Just like we should take any traffic violation serious.
Yes.
We should take, like if I bought a life jacket for a child and they drown, even though they have that life jacket, we should take that very serious. But why is it that when we look at things like that, we always go to the extremes and it's like, yeah, we allow it or we're okay with it here. But if you talk about it in a sports way or a gambling way, or like if you apply it in this way, it's like, oh, we don't want to talk about that. We just want to have one blanket statement. Like, for example, I don't think there's many benefits to smoking cigarettes.
Me neither.
But there are some because maybe that cigarette literally is going to save someone's life and calm them down in the short term, right?
But I suppose there are small things like that. Like the actual effect you get from a cigarette might be beneficial in a very minuscule situation, but that's not a good one to use as an example. But I get the example you're trying to get. There are bad things that in the right moment could be very useful and good.
Right. But in that moment, that's what I'm also branching off of that. In that moment doesn't mean that it's good or bad or like.
Yeah, that moment doesn't determine whether it's good or bad. It's the entirety of the thing. And that's where it's like a cigarette is bad for you, even if it helps this one point.
Yeah, Gov, if you lost your house, does it matter how you lost your house?
No, it does not. Exactly. I'm homeless. It doesn't matter how I became homeless. I can't, as long as I can't fix that, it doesn't matter how I became homeless. I just need to figure out how to get a house or find a place to live at that point.
If you lose your house because you're addicted to gambling, I would advise all my friends, my family, my dog, whoever, the neighbor, never to gamble. But there are people that gambling replaces going to the bar. I'm disabled. That's the whole gimmick behind Wheels Up Fantasy, Wheelie, the whole disability thing. I thought it was unique. So you guys can learn more personal about me as this podcast goes on. But as a disabled person, it's harder for me to get to the bar than it is the average person. So being in the voice chat with people like Gov and in the group that we got, what we found was, the game becomes the central circus, if you will. It becomes the performance. It becomes the light bulb in the room that lights, this dark area. But eventually we start learning about each other's families, our job opportunities, funny jokes, insider trade, like we start trading, not insider trading, but we start trading, sports cards basically of our life where we flip it over and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy has a dog, this guy's making this for dinner. And then you end up
we're getting that environment of like we are able to that's sort of how the world's going right now. Ever since COVID, we've all starting to learn how to interact with people without actually going out and interacting with people. We can stay at home. It's making it easier for people like you. And as you know, my brother's disabled, so I tend to be at home a lot with him, but I do have the ability to go out to the bar.
Well, COVID allowed me.
But I mean, since then, I have started on Discords and talking with people, and there's been more proliferation of Zoom chats and other things like that, so that people can talk and be visually with people.
Right. To use a different example to show that we're a pop culture podcast, I'll say this. I know for a fact that once COVID happened, I started getting more job opportunities remotely, which benefits me as a disabled person. That's
exactly.
That's 100% fact.
Yes.
But I'm not celebrating the fact that people lost their life during COVID.
Yes. No, I'm not either. I'm just saying that since that happened, one of the adjustments we've had in the world is an increase in the remoteness of people and gatherings.
So
it's not because people are still trying to get together as much. It's just now it's not giant barbecues in someone's backyard to watch the Super Bowl. Now it's going to be something like, it's funny I say that because I'm literally going to a barbecue to watch the Super Bowl. So, but I might be on both. I might be able to do both. I'll be at the barbecue on Sunday with my friends here that I go to the bar, and I'll have my phone in my pocket with an AirPod in the Discord with whoever's watching the game with probably all of us watching the game in the Discord.
Right.
So I'll be sweating DFS like it. Like I'm one of the few guys who I'm going to be multitasking. I'm going to be everywhere I can be because it's now because of the remoteness. I can be in multiple places at once. There are a lot of people who can't do multiple things at once, so that's hard for them. But being able to do more things remotely has been a big change to the world, and that's sort of proliferating more people not going to games and wanting to stay at home. And once you're staying at home watching the game, you sort of want something else to do with the game that you would be missing from going to a stadium and interacting with the crowd at the game. Like doing the wave takes time that I spend working on late swap for DFS or sweating a halftime prop bet.
Well, that's exactly it too. If there's a bunch of 18-year-old females doing the wave and you're this 35-year-old guy in the crowd and you don't want to do the wave, then don't do the damn wave. But you'll still get to enjoy the game for what it is. And that's the thing is, like, some people that play DFS have never heard of late swap in their life.
Using terms like that, yeah. But you understand, and so that's the kind of thing I'd be sweating at home watching the game still.
Right.
And so if the normal sports fan is upset that I'm taking away from his experience because I'm creating this remote experience, that's a good discussion to have. Like I'm not sure what to like. I've been thinking this whole time, and I'm not sure what to say about that. Like, I kind of want to be a dick and say, well, get over it. I'm still watching the sport and I'm betting on it.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be a dick. And I'm like, I'd like for you to understand that I'm not trying to hurt your sport, but I'm not helping you at the same time. I'm not helping you keep the sport the way you want it.
Well, we actually have our first comment, not to interrupt you, Gov, but
no,
this guy wants to know our Super Bowl predictions, and I would love to do it in this kind of podcast format because we're kind of being alternative in the way we think. Who do you think has the edge when it comes to making predictions on something as big as the Super Bowl, like this big pop culture event?
I would definitely go with the sports bettors. Like whatever Vegas says, I think that they have a better record. I think that if you go over time, what they put down in their books, what they're hedging on and trying to get the money on, that's usually the way to go.
Yeah,
is it always right? No, I'm not going to say it's going to be 100% perfect, but I'm more willing to listen to, like, for a really old school reference. mixed with a new school reference. I am much more willing to listen to Jimmy the Greek over Stephen A.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was going to ask, and we'll get to the predictions here in a minute, I promise.
Yeah, we will. No problem.
But I was just going to ask, since you brought it up, and I don't want it to slip through my fingers here, is, okay, so we have Vegas, right? As a sports gambling community, we have things like projections, which I don't want to get too much into, but there are people that will have analytics.
You've been able to do that. You can go to it's been in every sport. It's not just DFS. I can go to the horse track and buy a bettor's guide.
Right.
Buy the dude's book. He's the guy who's looked at the horses and like, there's all that. That's all projections are, is that sort of stuff. But you go on ESPN and look at a rankings list.
Right.
It's essentially the same thing. Projections are just slightly more in depth for use for what we want. But it's the same basic concept.
So the hardcore sports fan, his equivalent of that would be the beat reporter, right?
That would be the beat reporter. That would be
the beat reporter,
the follower of the team, stuff like that.
It might be like PFF. Maybe you're a big believer in Chris Collinsworth and what him and his analytic team is doing over there.
Maybe you follow a specific player or two or a coach on the team because they tweet out stuff. Yeah, but that would be them. They're following more like the specific dudes for a team, whereas I think you're just as good off just listening to Vegas and the sports bettors. Yeah.
So let's answer this guy's question. He wants our prediction. So let's do this. Let's give.
You want my if he wants. I think Cincy can win this.
I know you do. It'll be a fun
that's what I don't want to really get out there. I really do think Cincy can win this. I think these teams are. Everyone's going to look at the offensive-defensive line matchup. And it's definitely not in Cincy's favor. But they're not so bad of a football team to make the Super Bowl that, like, if you think Burrow's going to get hit and destroyed 10, 12 times, I don't know if that's going to happen. That just doesn't really happen to him or quarterbacks. Now, I don't know what I can trust. He's a second-year guy, but I think their offense could do normal offense things. They might only put up like 17 points, but I think they can put up 17 points. Then it comes down to the other side. And as good as the Rams have played, and they have played very, very well this season. They've done everything they needed. They made all the trades. They had a really, 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 really good offense that one year they made the Super Bowl and then scored 3 freaking points. And if they're one-dimensional and Akers can't play and it's just Sony Michel, no Henderson, and all you have to do is guard Kupp and Beckham from the passes, Cincy can win that game 17-10. We could have a like the Giants Patriots Super Bowl when the Patriots look so good going 16-0. Mm-hmm. Then they just ran into a average offense with a pretty good defense that had already played them once. And what happened? Eli got it done. I think this is the slightly reverse. I think this is a pretty good offense and an average defense. But an average defense can still give Stafford and the Rams problems because they don't trust McVay. And as good as Stafford is, and Stafford is a very good quarterback, I will not doubt that at all. I really liked him in Detroit. I really wish Detroit would have put a better team around him. But no offense, it's Detroit. They're essentially the Sacramento Kings of football. But yeah. So, like, as much as I like them, Stafford's going to do really good things with the Rams. But I don't trust Sean McVay. And we'll see. I'm probably wrong. Rams are probably going to win like 28-7.
I think
it's probably going to be a big blowout Rams because that's, I think, the predictions. And I think if you look at Vegas, that's what they have. Like, their lines are set to do something like that. So, like I said, I'm going to trust Vegas, and when I do my DFS stuff, I'm going to base it on Rams win big.
It's funny you bring that up because I think that's what sports fan also thinks too. So
Ratings win big, yeah.
it's funny how the two hate each other because one is lipstick and one is pig, and they hate when they combine.
Well, that's the other thing. The other thing with sports betting is as we get closer to Sunday and that line moves, we'll see what Vegas does about that. And that will also determine what I do. If that line moves in a way where Vegas has to start hedging the other way, then that's where I'm really going to start getting onto Cincy as the winner.
That sounds pretty intelligent for it.
But that's more like a sports betting thing. That's more like one of the DFS things we would talk about. A normal sports bettor who puts his bet in on Sunday morning or puts his DFS lineup in 5 minutes before lock, they're not thinking about that.
Well, that's what I would argue too.
But the guy who looks at the line on Monday and then looks at the line on Friday and then looks at the line Sunday morning, he knows. That's where I think the bettor has the edge at the sport. I think the bettor knows the sport better than the sports fan, because the sports fan's watching the sport that one day.
Right.
Now, there are outliers. We've pointed out the outliers. There is that one fan who's on Twitter looking at every day's practice and coaches and what they all have to say after the practice and beat writers and all of that. And that guy is not the average fan. The same way we're just at the cusp of being not the average bettor because we are looking at that stuff multiple days a week in advance.
Well, let's be completely transparent then. There are people that come into our voice chat and they try to steal information that we have cultivated.
Oh, yeah, they're in there
over days.
Right before lock trying to do that. So, like, hey, let me get some quick shit so that I can just build a quick lineup 20 minutes before lock.
And don't bullshit me. I know who you know who you are. Like, you'll spend 5 minutes chatting with us when we've cultivated this flower for hours. So that happens on both sides. And like that's the thing too. It's like, okay, so
that person, I don't believe in as much as I hate that happens, I don't believe that person is being as profitable as someone like us. I don't think they're being as smart as us. And I think in the long run, they will get what's coming to them. I also believe a lot in karma. I think people do get what's coming to them when you start doing shitty stuff like that.
And just because you're shitty one day doesn't mean, like, this is a bad analogy, but it came to my head, so I got to get it out now. Because you have a ball movement on Monday doesn't mean you're going to have to go to the bathroom on Tuesday. So if you have a bad moment and you steal somebody's lineup, or you not steal, if you overuse it trying to learn something, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's bad. We all know that. But it's the intention in which you do things that matters more to me. So to me, it's like, did you do that in the past and now you're around smarter people? Or maybe you wanted to go into the chat and steal someone's thoughts for the last 5 minutes before lock. But then you realize, hey, Government's a pretty cool guy. And you end up spending 20 minutes. And then you accidentally learn something. I would much rather be open-minded to that kind of change than be like, this guy's an idiot and start some kind of drama. Because like you say, the people that expect you to fish for them every day, they're not gonna survive anyways.
Exactly. That's my thought. Those guys coming in just for the 5 minutes before and they go in and try to get the stuff and come out. If they grab a fish, oh well. They're not going to get that every day. It's not going to help them in the long run.
Right.
But I don't want to close everything off because there are people who will come in and ask questions and sit there for the hour or more and then stay in and keep talking with everyone.
Right.
And they are learning and they are like trying to make themselves better. And I don't want to close them off just because there's a few idiots who do, like, there's always going to be people in the world who think about just what they can do. They don't mind taking. They'll do it underhanded. They'll get what they can and every bit that they'll come in 5 minutes before. They'll start harassing people and the DMs and that. And it's like, dude, like, we're willing to help you learn how to play. That's not giving you lineups. That's not saying bet this. Like, I'm not going to tell you to go bet this over under, but I'll explain to you why I have come to the conclusion that I'm going to bet the under, and you are perfectly willing to come to a different conclusion and bet the over, and I don't know which one's going to be right till the end of the game.
Well,
honestly.
As we wrap up, because I don't want to steal too much of your time, that's exactly why I prefer the sports bettor over the super fan. Because the super fan does something very similar. Oh, I'm a Vikings fan, therefore my child's going to be a Vikings fan. Therefore, my family is, we go down to the basement every Sunday.
Yep, I've seen that. Yes.
The sports bettor is more diverse. They're more open-minded.
Literal example for me. My dad, hardcore Cleveland Browns fan, has been his whole life, still is to this day. He did not force that. I mean, he definitely put it out there, like gave Grogu the choice. Do you pick the Browns or do you pick the Dolphins? When he was young, and my brother crawled towards the Dolphins. Kind of thing. But like, he didn't force the Browns on me or my dad. I didn't like sports as a kid, so he didn't force sports on me. I tried. Like, I would ask to go play baseball or let me try basketball. Didn't like going out playing sports. Preferred video games. I would play Madden. I'd play NBA 2K. I'd play all that stuff. But I didn't like playing the sports. But then I did get into sports. And he didn't try to push the Browns on me. And I'm a Panthers fan. So, like, my household has a Panthers fan and a Dolphins fan that spawned from a Browns fan. But my dad's bet on sports, so he had no problem with that. Hell, even my dad's sports is he's a Browns fan, but he's a Lakers fan, but he's a Yankees fan for the three major sports. So even he himself is diverse. But to be fair, that's probably three good teams to be betting on for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
To be fair, if you think about it, if you were betting on the Lakers and the Yankees and the Browns between 1955 and now, you probably had some really good years.
Let's just say you're wearing more than Yankee pinstripes when you're wearing those pinstripes. You're probably looking pretty good at that point,
Yeah, oh yeah.
But that's my point as well. It's like the super fan, they want you to like have one distinction. And I think that's the whole point of degenerate. Like, I think they want that to be a negative connotation for us. But
I want to be diverse. Like, I'm willing to root on everybody.
We really do. We wear it like a badge of honor. We wear it like an LGBTQ community where it's like, oh yeah, you think we're fruity and rainbows? Well, okay, that's going to be our flag. So like calling us degenerates or calling me degenerates, I'll speak for myself, it's not a negative to me. It's like, okay.
I prefer the term fish. We're fish.
Right.
We're swimming in this ocean of betting that other people are trying to just stay dry and still watch the sport. And we're like, we'll just swim through it and we don't care if we catch the sport, we do. If not. And they don't like that. They don't like us being that and just sucking up all the stuff.
Well, why can't one guy be Michael Phelps and the other guy be a master angler like, Kevin Steelman? But like, exactly. That's the whole thing. It's like, I don't understand this whole thing. And I really do think it's like this unspeakable, deeper conversation of a darkness in the NFL where they want to keep us separate. I don't really think we're that different.
No, I really don't, because I'm going to cheer for the game and I'm going to be really happy when teams win or lose. I just might not have a specific one every week that I always root for. I will, but I might not always. I can understand how some bettors wouldn't. So.
I'm going to show you how I'm a professional right here and tie this podcast together with the final question. So my prediction. And the reason I bring this up is because, like we've been talking about, I think to end it, I think we learned that, there are some differences. But at the end of the day, we all like to eat, Like you cook away, I cook away. The one thing in making this prediction for the Super Bowl is the sports bettor, the sports watcher, they're going to watch the game and they're going to watch this. They're going to watch matchups. They're going to watch quarterbacks play against D-lines. Offensive lines play against D-lines. Now, how we get our action, how we get our enjoyment are different. But we're watching matchups. So when I look at matchups and I think about predictions, I think this is the most exciting matchup-based Super Bowl I have maybe ever seen in my life because they are polar opposites. And in fact, it's why I wanted to release this podcast on this day, or on this week rather, because we're talking about things that are like-minded but polar opposites. And I view the Rams and the Bengals as a very different experience, right? So the Rams were like the trust fund babies. You know, they loaded up on all these old veterans. You know, they sold all their first round picks. They got Von Miller, they got Stafford, they took Odell Beckham. They said, we'll fix you, you know, on the cheap. You know, they took all these old superstars aging, got rid of all these draft picks. The Bengals literally they were like the lowest odd team to make the Super Bowl, to actually make the Super Bowl since, I want to say, the Tennessee Titans, the year they played the Rams. I want to say that's correct. Or it might be, no, you know what it was? It was actually Tom Brady's rookie year. The year he went in for Bledsoe.
Yep.
So I find that really fascinating that one team spent all this money on this cruise ship, the other one spent this money on this nice little kayak that, like, it's a goddamn nice kayak, but it's a kayak, and the other one's a cruise ship, and they're going to meet on the same water, and it's going to come down to, you know, a lot of different factors, and that matchup is going to determine what wins the race. Like, the offensive line against the defensive line will determine that game in a large factor, right?
It should.
Right, because the Rams have a really good D-line with Von
And
Miller.
Cincy's offensive line is one of the worst.
Is one of the worst, right?
Then on the other side, it's sort of even. Like, to be fair, Cincy's D-line has been middle of the pack, but it's not like Rams' offensive line is super stellar. It's probably top 10, but it's not top 5.
No,
and then you get like the 15th ranked defense in Cincy. So they're much closer than you think.
Right.
That's basically an even scratch, to be honest. But yeah, there's a massive disparity when it comes to Rams versus Cincy on
right.
that side.
I would tell you that Cincy has an advantage in the run game as well with Joe Mixon over Cam Akers or any of those guys.
Joe Mixon and P. Ryan over Akers and Michelle. I would definitely say that, yes.
I would tell you their secondary, Cincy's secondary, or sorry, not secondary, their linebackers are better than. So we could nitpick all these matches, but I'm saying, like, stylistically, it makes fights. They say, well, in this one, it's going to be a dogfight, I think, because of the matchups. Forget the names. I mean, people. So I just find it interesting that one team got here one way, the other team got here another way. It's going to come down to simple matchups. And for that reason, we're looking at, is Matthew Stafford going to be Brett Favre, or is he going to be Jamarcus Russell?
You don't even have to go that far. Is he going to be Brett Favre? And which Favre are we getting? Are we getting young Favre, who won the Super Bowl in Green Bay? Or are we getting old Favre, who could have won the Super Bowl 3 or 4 times between Green Bay and Vikings, but just couldn't get it done?
Or are we getting good Stafford and bad Stafford?
I don't think we're going to get that bad of a Stafford. But I think our bad Stafford game is that Brett Favre game where he looks good. He's throwing for 285 yards. He's got 2 touchdowns. They're right there, and he throws an interception in the 4th quarter. That's a bad Stafford game, and I think that's what might end up happening is in a close game where they're driving down maybe 13-17, and then he throws an interception. And since he just has to use their run game to run out 4 or 5 minutes. And I think that could be a horrible thing for the Rams, which is why I would want to take Cincy. Then again, it could just be the other way around, and it's like a 21-7 game most of the time. And then the fourth quarter comes and Burrow throws the pick, and now it's 28-7 and the Rams win.
Cincy also has the best wide receiver prop, top to bottom in the league, in my opinion. And for that reason, it's going to be a high-scoring Super Bowl. It's going to be 30-27 Rams.
30-27 Rams. Yeah.
The Rams are going to be gay at the end of the year because Gay is going to kick the field goal to win it. 30-27.
That could work, because right before that you would probably need something like a 24-27, and then McPherson, Money Mac hits a field goal to tie it up.
Right.
And the Rams are able to come down and get a winning field goal. I could see that. If it's high scoring, but I don't have a high scoring game. I don't know.
I actually do, though. Like, I think people think that Cincy is just like Cinderella story. And it's easy because it writes itself. Cincy, Cinderella, right?
I mean, I'd had them losing like 2 rounds ago, so yeah.
Of course, but I did too, but that was because I overvalued Tennessee and I overvalued some other teams.
I didn't even do that. I undervalued, like, as much as I liked Joe Burrow, he's a second-year guy. I thought his ceiling was the divisional round.
See, I
honestly did that. I honestly had that in place. That as a second-year guy, his ceiling was he wasn't going to make the championship game. He would look well, and then next year they might even be a Super Bowl contender. But that's what I had. I had it as Cincy playing well and losing, and then next year after they get a revamp of the team, they're a Super Bowl contender. Not they're a Super Bowl contender this year. I did not. I didn't. They're ahead of schedule for me. They are a year ahead of schedule for me, which is why I think they probably will just end up losing and falling flat. But maybe it's close. And they win, or maybe it's close and high scoring and they lose. If it's close and it's high scoring, they'll lose. If it's close and it's like 17-13, I think they win.
See, but I think they got more bullets in that Nerf gun than people think. Like, I really do.
Chase and Higgins and Boyd are solid.
Right.
They have good weapons. Mixon's, P. Ryan, yeah.
I don't really think there's much difference between Sample and Uzomah either.
There's definitely a difference. Samples, like blocking wise, no, there's not much of a difference. But when it comes to the receiving end, Uzomah has shown a lot better ability, like just agility in the slot, hands with the ability to make that catch. Sample doesn't have those hands. He has more of the stone hands. That being said, he's probably as good, if not a better blocker.
I'll make one more bold prediction as we wrap this up, and we'll talk about some actual sports. I think Odell Beckham wins MVP.
That's a possibility. I think it's just going to be Cup or Chase.
It could be, but I think
Cup, Chase, or Staff. Well, yeah, it's gonna be either the 2 wide receivers or the 2 quarterbacks. Those are going to be my bets.
I just think that the fun story would be this guy that was cast away by the Browns.
He has to have a big game, though.
Right. The narrative's there, though. Like,
no, the narrative's there. If you get to the halftime and where they start voting for the MVP or that stuff, it's like right after halftime up to the third quarter and that. If he's got like 5 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown, but when they start MVP voting, he'll be right there as like the top guy. Yeah. Because the fans will vote him in if he's one of the top receivers. But I got a feeling it's going to be more like 9 for 160 for Cup at the same time, and it's going to be hard to not pick Cup.
I'll give you the floor for the last 5 minutes, and I'll tie this up with a bow, and then we'll get out of here. How about that?
That's fine. What you need. Sure.
So is there anything you want to say, anything on this topic, anything that you want to get off your chest that you did not during this conversation? I'll give you a second to think about it.
Let's see. No, pretty much when I was able to get it out, I said what I needed to say. I'm trying to think of anything else I'd want to add to it.
I would say this, guys. This is why I did this week. The Super Bowl is a melting pot of different avenues, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to get mothers that come to this to play cards. You're going to get
There's people there just to watch the commercials.
Right. Don't shun people for why they come to an event, but instead pull up a chair, invite them in, and have a conversation, because there is more inclusion and diversity and like-mindedness in all walks of life and all avenues of life, in my personal opinion, than there is division. I think one of the biggest barriers that we have is language. And I think as long as we try to speak the same language, we would be better off as humans. So when that mother comes and she asks that dumb question about why is this guy wearing these tennis shoes? And you're like, man, this is third down and we're in the third quarter. Why are you asking about this guy's tennis shoes or his cleats? Because she doesn't even know the right terminology. Instead of like, yelling at her and being, oh, she's a terrible mother-in-law or whatever the relation is, be like, you know what? Maybe this is your entry point into sports. Me and Governor did not take a traditional route into sports. My parents do not really like sports in that way. My dad absolutely hates sports and despises it. He's like an arts guy. He's like a Pollock guy. He's very abstract. He doesn't like macho kind of thing.
Right. And mine's the opposite, whereas my dad is a big sports guy, but he never pushed it on me. So like I didn't even really start watching sports or being a sports person until mid-teens or later. Like I was already a senior in high school when I really started watching football.
And
I have become someone who loves watching sports. But my basis was on video games, and I played a lot of numbers games. And like my first real sport I would play and gambled with my dad would have probably been horse racing or poker. So I come from that background more than an actual sports background.
Right.
But I've gotten into sports nonetheless. I would say I'm a fan. I have Panthers jerseys in my closet.
Well, before people get mad at your dad taking you to the horse track to bet on horse racing, first of all of you people, mothers, fathers, people that like sports, people that don't, if you've ever smoked around a child, you gave them secondhand smoke. So before you call the kettle black, let's not.
Right. And it's not like he let me bet when I was like 12 or 14.
Exactly.
Or like that. There's plenty of times people would go to Del Mar as a family and the dad might be betting and the mom and the kids are just running around because you're out at the fucking park or the fair or something.
You're at the
barbecue. This happens to be at the horse track.
Right. My 6-year-old nephew is going to be at a barbecue probably for the Super Bowl. No one's going to expect that little 6-year-old to cook the cheeseburgers and burn himself on the grill.
Exactly. So and just to sort of tie it together on the opposite side, the sports fan doesn't need to be thinking that everyone coming to the game is going to be rah, I'm on my team. That you have to allow for the mothers and children who are going to come to the game who maybe they need a distraction at the game of some kind.
A board game, D&D.
Something like a lot of baseball stadiums now have little kids parks for the kids to play or even an arcade or something like that to help distract people.
Which there's no difference between McDonald's having a playscape and having that food addiction and having a game money.
Exactly. That's how the world is. We need to be accommodating for that kind of stuff.
Accommodate everyone and you'll find more likeness.
Yes.
You'll find not. Even people that, I'll make one more point because we didn't talk about it too much on the pro side. I don't think people that paint their faces are stupid. If you want to do it, get up and make a sign and
show your passion. Do that. There's no problem. Yeah. I'm not going to stop you.
I wouldn't do it.
I do it for Comic-Con. I cosplay.
No, I
have no problem doing that to go to Comic-Con, so I'm not going to have a problem you doing that to go to a Bills game.
See, but I would do that for Comic-Con, but I wouldn't do it for sports. And that's a whole other thing. I guess
I'm just not that passionate about sports. As much as I like sports, I'm not that passionate of a fan about sports. Now, you're telling me I have season tickets and I'm going to the game every week. I might get into doing that. You might see me as one of those guys at the Raiders games in the Road Warrior costume.
Well, for example, I like mustard and I like peanut butter, but I'm not going to combine the two. Some people might, and it might make it taste good, but it's not.
Yeah, maybe it's not for me either. But I'm not gonna say you can't. I'm just gonna say please don't.
So I would dress up for Comic-Con, but you won't see me dressing up for football. But that's because the two just don't intersect in the same way.
Right. But I believe they are very close to each other. It's sort of the same concept. Like there's plenty of people who go to Comic-Con and don't dress up. They just go to be at the experience.
Right.
But then there's the passionate people who like, I want to go, I want to do the experience, and I want to dress like this.
Well, then there's
and be a part of the crowd and be a part of the experience that people are having. And that's what people go to the games. They don't just want to go and watch the game. They want to go and be a part of the game. And that's how you get to be a part of the game. They show those people on TV. They're part of the crowd. They're the fans that people mention when they talk about the fans that come to the game. They want to be a part of that. And I'm fine. Show your passion. Do that. I will never say don't do that. I want them to be able to do that 100%.
And we're all going to express ourselves in our own way. Like you say, some people are going to laugh and they're going to joke and they're going to have a great time watching commercials. That's when I'm going to go to the bathroom and get my refills.
That's when I'm going to be the degenerate gambler and be like, okay, I got $1 on the next commercial being about crypto.
Yeah.
Who's got takers? I'll be sitting there. We're about to go to commercial. All right, I got $1 on it being a crypto commercial. Who's got it? You got $1? What are you saying? I got $1 on it being crypto. What do you got? You got $1 on it being Coke? Okay. You got $1 on it being Budweiser. Heard. We all got $1. Whoever it is wins. And it's a Hulu commercial. Boom.
And if you're watching the commercial, you're making somebody money.
Exactly. We're all there to do that. So like, let's have fun and don't let me not have fun with it. And let's all have fun with it.
Right. So with that being said, I'm going to definitely bring on Governor for these kind of conversations. We're going to bring on some other people. My next podcast should be about, I'm going to bring on a person that knows nothing about DFS, and we're going to talk DFS. And so that should be an interesting conversation.
Try to bring in everything you can.
Yeah, and he'll be a fan favorite. I can already tell.
I'll be happy to be on whenever I can.
Thank
you for the opportunity.
I appreciate the people out there. Hopefully this is good. We'll take some feedback, but like I said, the most important thing is just to be transparent about conversation. Let it flow where it's going to flow and let it be organic, and then see at the end of the year if we have a garden of wonderful labor or not. And that's all I want to do with this. So thanks for joining us. Wheels up. Take care. Be safe. Everyone enjoy the Super Bowl. Let it be super. Let it be extraordinary. Let it be its own experience. Take care. Goodbye.
Go Bengals.